Hi, I'm Leslie Detrani,
Hello, I'm Cyrus Mehta.
and we're with the Alliance of Business Immigration Lawyers. And Cyrus is here to talk to us about the green card process, the adjustment of status from TPS. This is one of my favorite topics. So, please tell us more about how you get to a green card from TPS, Temporary Protected Status.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because most people stop thinking about it once they get TPS. They think that's the end result. You do get a work authorization, and people who've received TPS can extend it for years on end. So even though TPS is a temporary program, people generally have extended for many years. It's still prudent to think about how you can get to green card because there are two reasons for that. One is you want more stability in your life because you could have an administration that could try to end the TPS designation, which we saw in the previous administration under President Trump. But when you get sponsored for a green card and you have an employer, your skills match to what you really are. When you have a work authorization to TPS, you could potentially work in any job. And we often find people are underemployed or their skills are not really utilized. How many times have we ridden in an Uber or a taxi where the person was formerly the head of accounting in a company overseas?
Yeah.
So when that person is matched up to a suitable employer and gets sponsored for a green card, then the skills match and it's a win-win for both the foreign national as well as for the employer.
So that's kind of an interesting point because we're talking to employers, right? And the employers might be small businesses or
Hmm.
corporations, hospitals, educational institutions. And in this market, everyone is having a hard time finding enough workers, skilled, unskilled, professional. There's just not enough workers. So what you're saying is that there is a group of people already in the United States with temporary protected status with work authorization that might be working in jobs that don't use all their skills.
That's correct.
And
Yes.
you might tempt them into your company to fill some void and sponsor them for a green card.
Absolutely. And we need to make employers aware of this workforce that has amazing talents, hidden talents, I would say, because they may have come into the US and started in jobs that were not really matched with their skills. But now, let's say the accountant, for example, wants to get into a job that requires his or her accounting skills. An employer might want to exploit that and then start the labor certification process. Now, the good thing about TPS, what's unique about TPS, is that when you get TPS, you're in a non-immigrant status and that renders you eligible to ultimately adjust your status in the United States.
So now remember, we're talking to employers. Like we're lawyers, so I got what you just said. But
Yeah,
I'm
so what I'm
wondering,
trying to, yeah, I'm glad that you reminded me, but to make it simple, as simple as possible, you can sponsor an employee on TPS in the United States, and that person can finally get their green cards in the United States without having to leave, without having to potentially face 3 or 10 year bars. Of course, under certain circumstances, we're assuming the person who has TPS hasn't fallen out of status prior
mhm,
to getting TPS.
mhm.
There is a big
So
group
there's
of people.
hurdles, but
Yeah,
lawyers would look at all those grounds of
that's right.
inadmissibility, and the employer doesn't need to know that. What?
That's right. That's right. So even if a person didn't have the ability to get their green card in the U.S. because there's a big cohort of people from Afghanistan and the Ukraine who may not have TPS, but they were paroled into the country. They came on humanitarian parole.
Mm-hmm.
Those folks could also be sponsored for green cards. They may not be able to get their green cards in the United States, but they can leave the US, get their immigrant visas abroad, and then come to the United States as green card holders
And when you
if they
mean
have been
that,
successfully sponsored by
when
employers.
you say leave the U.S., it's for a short period of time of weeks, not process outside. Because
That
when
is
I was
right.
talking with Launch, she was talking about how long the labor certification process is. But if someone's here with parole, asylee, refugee, TPS, DACA, any kind of status here working, The adjustment process works here in the United States. You can consular process, you'd have to leave, but it's only for weeks.
It's for
It's
weeks because you time it in such a way that you leave when you get your appointment. But it's very important, and this is again for us lawyers to determine and advise both the employer and the foreign national employee, is that you only leave if you're not going to face any uh, inadmissibility issue.
Yeah, clients never like it if we tell them to leave and they don't get to come
That's
back.
right. That's right.
doing a
So
bad
we
job.
really want to make sure that when they leave, they can come back. There's no guarantee, but we want to make that assessment on behalf of the employer and the employee. The bottom line is that we want to get them their green cards in the US, but some may not be able to do that. They may have to leave. And if they do face a ground of inadmissibility, we want to make sure that they have the waivers ready to come back.
So what you're saying for employers to take note, you've gone through the PERM or labor certification process. Your person here in the United States, whether it be a refugee or a parolee or TPS, they're here. With TPS in particular, you can adjust, and it's the permanent solution. You don't have to worry about a president limiting the status. They then will be here forever.
That's right. So if you have TPS and you are eligible for a green card, you can get it here while you're in TPS, provided you are not out of status for long periods of time. So that's also an important condition to meet. But generally, that's the magic with TPS. You're treated as if you have a visa. You're on a non-immigrant visa.
Exactly.
And that allows you to get the green card in the United States once your employer has got that labor certification approved.
And I think, kind of just ending with this is that, this is an area where there's been litigation, and there might be more changes in the future about who and how people can adjust from TPS.
That's right. This situation is very fluid. The Supreme Court is also opined, but on a different issue. But generally, the statute makes it clear that if you're in TPS and somebody who came cleanly, let's say someone who was paroled into the US, let's say you were a Ukrainian or Afghan national and you came in, you got paroled, and then you applied for TPS, there's been no lapse in the status, you're a good candidate to get your green card in the United States if your employer sponsors you successfully through the labor certification process.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.